Alright, so today we'll be working on the client server architecture with using MySQL on AWS EC2. So I've done a detailed project documentation based on my personal exploration of this client server architecture, and I'm going to be taking us through what I did, what are the lessons I learned, how I was able to configure. And basically, what we are saying when it comes to client server architecture, we are saying that we have a server running on a remote system somewhere, and we have another system. It can be a laptop, a desktop, a smartphone, whatever, that send a request to the server, and the server kind of return a response in respect to that. So that's basically what we call a client side. So the system in which you are using to send the request is what we call the client, while the system you are sending the request to with the hope of getting a response is what we call a server. And we're going to be demonstrating this by using the MySQL database and by creating a client and a server architecture using the MySQL database engine or system on AWS to set up this. So we are going to create two separate instances. One, we are going to install the MySQL client. Then on the other instance, as you can see, we are going to install the MySQL server, and we are going to log in into the MySQL client, and we are going to communicate with the MySQL server by logging into it remotely from the client, and we'll perform some operation on this on the MySQL server using the MySQL client, just to demonstrate what a client server architecture really looks like. Right. So the prerequisite is kind of simple. We create two instances, one called the MySQL server and one called the MySQL client, and we'll be able to SSH into both. Basically, the SSH will be doing into the server. Basically, just to install the necessary infrastructural system by installing the MySQL server package and configure it properly so that it can be accessed remotely from the client. So that's just the only SSH you'll be doing into the MySQL server. But the main operation, database operation, will be done from the MySQL client using the SSH interface. So this is basically what the architecture will look like. So let's go back to our AWS instance. So although I currently have two instances running on my AWS system, so what I'm going to do is I am going to stop the two instances. In fact, I'm going to delete them so that we start from scratch. So I'm going to delete them. So while they are shutting down, let's just give them some time to properly shut down. Right. So while that is doing, let's just continue. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a MySQL. Let's just say MySQL. Yeah, clients. I'm going to create a new one. Clients. Hopefully it will not interfere. So let's just see if that will work. I'm going to leave the basic configuration. Just choose an Ubuntu. Leave the T2 micro alone. I'm going to select my key pair. Then I'm going to use my existing default security group. So I'm not going to touch that. So I'm going to launch this. Right, so I think that's fine. So let me just refresh this. That's okay. So this has been created. Then let's launch another one. We call it MySQL Server. MySQL Server. So still the same configuration. Right, my security pair. Now I will need to create a separate. I'm going to create a separate security group for the server so that both I will be able to configure a unique security group for the server, because the server will need a separate security group compared to the client. Although I've actually done that in my previous experimentation, so this is just it, but I'm going to show you once I'm done what the configuration looks like. So we're going to maintain the same thing. So I'm going to launch this. So when we come back to, so I have these two running. You can see. Yes, I have the two running now, which are two fresh instances. Now I need to check. I need to get the public key, public IP for the client instance. Then I need to go back to the server instance, which is this. Then I need to update the security group inbound configuration. Now, so this is my SSH, which is saying, oh, only allow traffic from my IP address, which is fine. Now, here, right, we want to be able to communicate to the to the we want to be able to communicate. We want the clients to be able to communicate with the server MySQL. So to do that, I'm going to enter the private IP for the clients in the server security group, which is saying that any traffic from the clients, should be accepted. So that has been configured. So we can go back to the instances. Now, so this is my complete documentation. So the first thing we want to do is we want to SSH into our server so that we can install the database packages. So I'll go back to the instances. Right. So so I'm going to get into. So I'm going to connect to the MySQL server, as you can see. So let me go into my terminal. Right. So I need to start a new. Let's start a new terminal. Yes, terminal session. So let me get into the folder that I have my keeper. Then I should be able to paste this. If everything works, I should be able to log in. So yes. Good. So I'm inside the MySQL server. So let's start with the installation of the packages. So the first thing is to update my package manager, which that has been done. While that is doing, so let's copy the installation instruction for the MySQL server. So let's paste that here. So while that is doing what it's doing, let's go back. So once that has been done, what we need to do basically is to Well, the first thing that we want to do is to kind of uh, log in into the MySQL and create a password for the root user. And the reason why we are doing this because after this we are going to run this secure installation script, and follow the prompt. But without us setting the root password, once we run this script, we are going to be locked out of the MySQL root user account, and that would mean that we need to do a lot of password reset instruction and everything. So let me just confirm if my installation has been complete. So it's still going through. Ideally, I will probably want to start my MySQL service and enable it for auto restart during reboot and stuff like that, before coming into this. So I think uh, there's a bit of a what do you call it, a mist of step anyway. So but we'll just correct that in this video, and probably after the video I will correct those steps in my documentation so that you have the updated documentation at the end of this video. So I think we are almost done with the installation. So while that is doing, so let's just come here. So we need to copy these scripts, copy this command for us to start the MySQL service, because the MySQL service has to be working or running for you to be able to log in into it. So let's wait. This should be done by now. Right, so this is done. So let me start that to kickstart. Yes, so that has been done. So I will just enable the MySQL service. Right, so let's check if our MySQL is actually running. So I'll do MySQL. No, sorry, I'm gonna do systemctl, right, status MySQL. Right, so you can see that it's enabled and it's actively running, which is a good thing. So I can do MySQL. Sorry, so I can do sudo MySQL. I think yes. So that will allow me to go into the MySQL after a fresh installation. Then once I'm in there, I'm going to run this basically. So let's just paste. Now the password, I'm going to select the password. For demonstration purposes, let's select password.1. Right, that is good. Then I'm going to flush the privilege to make the updated password take effect immediately. Right, then I'm going to exit. So once I've done that, then we are going to run the MySQL secure installation. Oh, sorry, I think I made a mistake there. The underscore. Oh boy. That should be an underscore, not an hyphen. And the slash shouldn't be there. Alright, so it will ask for the root password, so I'm going to supply that. Right, so it's going to ask you validate password component can be used to test password and improve security. You check for the strength, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. Do you want your whatever? I will say yes. I want my password to be validated, to ensure. Then I usually take the strongest validation option. Then you check my current root password and say, oh, okay, is 100%. Do you want to change? I say no. Um, I don't want to change. I want to maintain the current password. Right. So you skip. You remove. Yes, remove that. Normally disable login remotely. Yeah. Disable root login remotely. Yes. I don't want the root login to be. I don't want the root account to be accessed remotely. So I've disabled that. Remove test database. Yes, remove that, please. Right. Reload privileges. Please reload the privileges, and that's all, by the way. So now, based on what I've done, for me to go into my SQL now, I have to do my SQL. Sorry, still not yet to roots. Then I put my password. If I did not do this, if I try to do this, I'll probably get an error saying using password. So since I did not put password, it's going to cause an error. So I have to indicate that I want to log in with a password, then I provide a password, and voila, I am in. So um, that is just, by the way, it. So let's go back to our documentation. So we have done this, everything is running fine. So the way we did this is we did the step 3 before we do the step 2. So I will update that so that this step 2 will be step 3, and the step 3 will be step 3 will be step 2. I will probably just add a step 4 to just verify everything is working fine. For the case of people that probably ran into issue running the step 2 without creating the root password and everything, you can actually follow this instruction. I drop a link to a video that actually shows how this is being done for you to be able to reset your root password and regain access to your root account. So that is, by the way. So now we need to reconfigure root access to our database so that we're able to communicate with the database from a remote server. So to do that, we are going to enter into the MySQL configuration file. Yes. So let's do this. Now, so what we are interested in is where we have this bind address. As you can see, you know that there are 2 bind addresses here. But the one we are actually interested in is the first one. So we are going to change the IP address to allow all IP. Why we are saying allow all IP is because from the AWS Security Group, we have actually restricted request to only one IP, which is the client server, right? So the reason why we are doing that is to give us a bit of flexibility. We don't want to restrict IP from an instance, and the reason why we go with that approach is, what if we are running multiple of this our database instance, which means we have to come into each of the instance to adjust IP. But by controlling the security group, we can attach a one security group to as many instances as possible, and both of them, or many of them, will inherit the same firewall rule from the security group. So once we have adjusted that, we'll need to restart our database. I drop a little bit of a note here that says that the binding address, which is This setting configures the IP address MySQL listens to for a standard MySQL client connection, typically on port 3306. Setting it to blah blah 000 allow connection from any IP. The MySQL X binding address, this setting is used for MySQL X protocol, which is actually a new protocol in MySQL. So, but will not really be bothering ourselves with this um, particular configuration, as is outside the scope of our project. So we are going to restart our database. You might probably want to read more about that if you are more interested in that. So while we are done, for us, like if you remember while we were doing the MySQL secure installation, there was an option that asked us to disable access to the root account from a remote server, which means that based on our current configuration, we cannot log in into the root account from a remote server. So, which means we need to create an account we can use to log in into our database from a remote connection. And to do that, we are going to create a new user, which we are going to call remote user. You can call it admin, you can call it anything. Then you will notice that if you notice when we are creating this user account, I think this is where okay. When we were setting up this password, you can see that we say root at local. That is to say, this root, right, can only be accessed from the local system, which is inconsistent with our secure configuration. But if you look at when we are trying to create this user, you notice that we say remote user at dollar what do you call it, percentage sign. This percentage sign is actually a wide card in MySQL, which is saying that you can connect to this user from any system, either locally or remotely. So far you have the credential, you have the host information, whatever. You should be able to connect to this user account from any location. So we are going to do this. We are going to copy this. We are going to come back. So we are going to log in into our database root accounts again. Right. So I'm going to paste the command. Right. Then I'm giving it all privileges to the So what we are saying that I'm giving all privileges to this user, and the privileges I'm giving to it is more of an admin privilege to be able to perform some administrative function on any database. That you can see that I'm using the asterisk, which is saying that this person can perform administrative tasks on any database. But when you want to do this, most of the time, especially you probably want to have a database the remote user is having access to. You don't want to give the remote user a kind of a super privilege to be able to alter any database. But for demonstration purposes, we'll just stick to this for now. We are kind of updating the privileges. Then we are going to do flush privileges to make it take effect almost immediately. Then we can exit. I think that's all the configuration we will need to perform at this moment. So we can exit from the server for now. But before we exit, let's just confirm that our server is running properly. System CTL status my MySQL to be sure. Okay, everything is running fine, so I can just exit the remote server. So let's connect to the client now. So go back to our console, our instances. It's taking a bit of time to load, so let's just give it a bit of time. Okay, right. So I'm interested in the client now. So I can do connect this. Let's see. Should be able to connect. Yes. So while that is doing its thing, so let's go back to the documentation. Now we need to update our package manager. While it's doing its thing, come back to copy the MySQL clients. Yes. While that is working, let's review our documentation so we can check the version to be sure that the installation has been done. And interestingly, that's just how the configuration you'll probably need to do from the client side as compared to what we did at the server side. So let's just check the version. The version is working fine. Now, for me to be able to log in into the server from the client side, if you remember when I was showing you my security group, 1 minute. Now, in the client, you will notice that we have a private IP address which we copied. Then if we went back to the security group for the server, just wanted, although I've done that, but I just wanted to show you so that you will understand what exactly we are talking about. So now if you look at this, you discover that what we posted here is the same IP address as what we have in the client side. So what we are saying is that we are telling the server that any traffic coming into the port 3306 from the client side should be accepted. That's basically what we are saying. And now I need to go back to my web server. I'll just go back to the instance. So I need a private IP for the server now, because we are going to need the private IP to communicate in the front end in the client side. So for me to be able to log in into the MySQL server from the client, I'm going to do sudo MySQL. Then I'm going to do host. What is my host? The private key of the MySQL server. Then I'm going to do user, which will be my remote. I'm not sure if it's underscore. So you can confirm that. Then I can do P. Let me confirm if it was underscore. I can't really remember. I'm an old man getting okay. It's an underscore, so we are good. So if I enter this actual password of the remote user, not the root user, so which is basically the password we say when we are creating, and voila, I'm inside. Oh, sorry, that's not a valid. That's not a full valid command. So I say show database. Oh, sorry, it should be databases. It's plural, right? So you can see database. If you remember when we were trying to change the username, the password for the root, we actually connected to the MySQL database because that's where we have the the user information. So yeah, that has been done. Um, we can create a so let's create a database, then we'll go and confirm by on the so from the client side, let's kind of create a database called my database. Then if you do show database, then we should be able to see this database. So let's exit for now and let's go and check from our client end, our server end, if that was populated. So let's log in into the server. So log in into the server instance and log in as a root user. Alright, so then, and we'll be able to confirm if the database we created from the client side is actually in the MySQL database. So I can do this. Let's give it some time to connect. Right, so if I do sudo MySQL, we won't need to put the host here because the host is actually a local host, so there's no point. So just do user root, then password, then I will do password. Then if you do show databases, now you can see the database we created from the client side is actually in the database. So which means that the database, the MySQL server we were actually interacting with from the client side is actually the one running on the MySQL server. So this is just a basic demonstration on how to create a simple client server architecture using MySQL. Thank you for taking your time to watch my videos. I really appreciate if you can like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for upcoming tutorial on different DevOps operations and practices as I progress within my DevOps journey and training. Thank you.